So it is Sunday, the 27th of May 2018. I'm just going to do a little continuation of my protest against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse. I was protesting earlier and took a little break, had a coffee, and we're just going to, I hadn't been planning on continuing the protest, but I sort of ran into somebody and so on and so forth. I decided since there's a few people hanging around the church, and so since there's plenty of public traffic, I'll just continue to protest a little bit, see what may or may not happen here. There's a small group of people that came out of the church having a little chat there. Fair bit of traffic coming this way from both directions. So yes, it's been essentially slightly over 20. Oh, I got a nice merci, thank you. Got a honk and a wave from a supportive member of the public in a car. That happens occasionally. I don't solicit honks, but I occasionally get them. Anyhow, yeah, quite a few cars. I think it's because of the work on the Turcotte Yards is sending people this way. Looks like somebody might have knocked down my picket sign, or it could have got blown down by the wind, so give him the benefit of the doubt, but he's looking back here a few times. He could have knocked down my sign, but I didn't see it actually happen. Maybe the camera caught it. I do get the irate Unitarians knocking down my signs, trying to hide what the picket signs are saying, which is the truth about Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse and Unitarian Universalist cover-up and denial of clergy abuse. And then so when they knock down the picket signs or otherwise interfere with my ability to inform the public, they are essentially only proving my point about Unitarian Universalist cover-up and denial of clergy abuse, etc. So I'm only too happy to have them knock down my picket signs and kick them into the street and water hose down my chalk slogans like they did earlier, because it only proves my point that they're more interested in concealing Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse than dealing responsibly with it. So totally out of alignment with the claimed principles and purposes of Unitarian Universalism. One of the principles of Unitarian Universalism, if I'm not mistaken, it's the fourth principle, calls for a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. So essentially, Unitarian Universalists are saying that Unitarian Universalists should engage in not only an unrestricted search for the truth, but also a responsible search for the truth. And yet, when it comes to clergy abuse and other internal injustices and abuses, etc., Unitarian Universalists do nothing of the sort. And not only do they fail miserably to practice a free and responsible search for the truth and meaning regarding Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse, but they try to prevent other people from engaging in a free and responsible search for the truth, by covering up and hiding the truth, such as by knocking down my picket signs, such as by watering down and hosing down my chalk slogans, such as by having me served with cease and desist demand letters that threaten me with criminal charges if I don't take down blog posts that tell the readily verifiable truth about such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers, if I can quote two choice phrases from the said cease and desist demand letters that I was served with just under 6 years ago now on Friday, June 1st of 2012. That was the first cease and desist demand letter, which, amongst other ludicrous accusations, falsely accused me of violating Canada's blasphemy law in an effort to intimidate me into memory holding some of the Emerson Avenger blog posts that told the truth about Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell and Richard Buell. So yeah, all kinds of ways that Unitarian Universalists in general, and Montreal Unitarians in particular, try to prevent the truth from being known. So in total violation of the fourth principle, which calls for a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And then, of course, that's very closely related to the second principle, which calls for justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. You cannot have justice, genuine justice, without a free and responsible search for the truth, to say nothing of meaning. That's why when you are in a court of law, you are sworn to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, because knowing what the truth is essential to, arriving at genuine justice. But the Unitarians not only basically obstruct justice by hiding the truth or trying to hide the truth and intimidating critics into silence and so on, but they actually misuse the justice system in their efforts to hide the truth. I have had false criminal charges brought against me, and not just the false blasphemous libel accusation, which never went further than an accusation in a cease and desist demand letter, because I basically totally discredited it in my responses to the lawyer who had me served with the letter, to say nothing of top-level UUA leadership. So they never acted on their threat to have me charged with blasphemous libel, because in my responses to the lawyer's cease and desist demand letters, I made it very, very clear that A, I was telling the truth, and B, hi. Oh, is it flower communion today? No.
We're just allowed to take a flower.
Oh, okay.
It's so beautiful.
Right, that's very nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Beats Unitarian clergy abuse anyway. So this woman came out of the church with a flower, and Unitarians do have a thing called flower communion. So I thought possibly it was flower communion today, but the woman is saying no, they just let people come out with a flower if they wanted. So it wasn't flower communion today, according to her. But yeah, her response to my protest is quite typical, sort of this, oh, hi, have a nice day, blah, blah, blah. Basically, like, as if the protest is totally meaningless, has no validity. Oh, have a nice day. Of course, it's always a nice day when I stand accused of blasphemy in the 21st century by atheist Unitarians. I mean, that's hilarious. I mean, it's for a very nefarious purpose, specifically hiding pedophilia and rape committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers, to say nothing of Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers, etc. But it is, on one level, laughable, like literally laughable. And I don't mind saying that when I first read the cease and desist demand letter that the Unitarian Universalist Association's Canadian attorney had me served with on Friday, June 1st of 2012. Well, actually, he didn't have me served on that date. He sent it by email. I was later served the actual paper document by a Montreal bailiff. I actually happily went to the bailiff's office to be able to be served with the actual paper document. I'm only too happy to have that ridiculous cease and desist demand letter in my possession. And of course I took photos of it and posted it to the internet soon afterwards. I just had to verify the legality of posting such things to the internet, but essentially there was no law against it. So after verifying things, I posted the 2-page cease and desist demand letter, photographs thereof, to my Emerson Avenger blog. Anyhow, sort of lost the train of thought here a little bit. Yeah, we were talking about the laughable, hilarious side of things. Like, obviously, it's not funny in one sense that Unitarian Universalists would actually go so far as to threaten to have a person, well, that's another honk, to have a person charged under Canada's archaic anti-blasphemy law in an effort to hide pedophilia and rape committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers, and to even punish a person for blogging about pedophilia and rape committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers and Sunday school teachers, etc. But, you know, so clearly not funny on one level. It's a despicable misuse of the criminal justice system to hide some of the worst forms of clergy abuse. But on the other hand, it's so ludicrous, so insane, batshit crazy, if you don't mind my saying so, that it's literally laughable. And yes, that was my point. Like, I literally burst out laughing when I first read that cease and desist demand letter. When I opened up my email and the email said, please refer to the attached document, and I opened up the attached PDF file, and it was a PDF file copy of the actual letter. I literally burst out laughing when I was about a third of the way into it, because it was just so ludicrous and quite literally laughable, the accusations that were being brought against me. And now, you know, I burst out laughing even before I got to the part about the alleged blasphemous libel. That was on the second page of the letter. Truly laughable legal bullying on the part of the Unitarian Universalist Association in an attempt to hide clergy abuse, which includes, but is not limited to, what the Unitarian Universalist Association's Canadian attorney, Stikeman Elliott Barristers and Solicitors defamation lawyer, Maitre Marc-André Coulombe, described as despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. Yes, and by the way, did I mention that we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of peaceful public protest? So we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of peaceful public protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montréal. My protest began in May of 1998, if not a little earlier in April, but definitely by May of 1998 I was protesting in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. Even got a bit of press in early June. And we're very close to the 6th anniversary of being falsely accused of blasphemous libel. So yeah, a couple of anniversaries coming up or you know, being observed. So we got Nancy Lorimer here. Nancy Lorimer, the woman on the right in the purple, is basically was an employee of the Gazette. I'm not sure in what capacity. She wasn't a journalist, as I understand it. She was some kind of, you know, staff executive. Really not quite sure, but I'm pretty sure that Nancy Lorimer, amongst other members of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, such as Sue Montgomery, and possibly also Mark Abley and Harvey Shepard, wielded their influence within the Gazette to ensure that the Gazette never properly reported on my protest against clergy abuse and so on. Anyhow.
I'm gonna go, Robin.
Okay. So yeah, I'm probably pretty well done myself. I just missed the 104, I noticed, so we'll see. Maybe...
Alors, happy anniversary.
Yeah, merci.
Félicitations. Are you doing something for the G7?
I'm not sure yet, but I think I'll probably stay in town because
Yeah.
I expect things to happen in Montreal. If everyone goes to Quebec City and Malbaie and nobody's here in Montreal.
There's gonna be action in Quebec, in Montreal.
Yeah, I figured in Montreal, so I think I'll probably stay here. I might not. I might, get my dose of tear gas and...
Yeah. And it might not be safe in La Malbaie.
No, yeah, exactly. That is,
The Russians might bomb the...
Excuse me. Okay, à la prochaine. Yeah. So that's a Montreal activist who came out to provide some support. I had another one earlier who brought me a nice 20th anniversary cake of all things. So basically celebrating 20 years of protest against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse. And so when he was asking me if I was going to go to the G7 protests in Quebec City and Malbaie coming up in early June, and I haven't decided yet. I probably won't, because I do believe that enough other videographers will be in Quebec and Malbaie for all the glory of the tear gas and so on, whereas I'm sure things will happen in Montreal, and if everyone's in Quebec City and Malbaie, there might not be much coverage of what happens in Montreal, so I think I might just stay in Montreal and cover what happens in Montreal. So on that note, which has nothing to do really with the issue of Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse, I will nonetheless wrap up this video of one of my protests celebrating 20 years of protest against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse. But before I wrap it up, I'm just going to zoom in here on the church's mission statement because I find it so problematic. So this is a new version. Looks like a professionally printed up